Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about Adam Aron's important message, the constant buying, the future projections, and many more in this video. First, we're taking a look at this, an important AMC message for you to think about as last year concludes and a new year begins. So we have this from Adam Aron, which I think is very important. For those of you who haven't read it, feel free to do so, because I think it gives an idea of what's going on, what has been going on, and what will be going on as well. So firstly, we can see as AMC's largest individual shareholder and not having sold even one AMC share on the NYSE since January of 2022, about 4 years ago, I personally and profoundly have felt the pain of AMC's falling share price. And from reading your many comments on X/Twitter, I know it's ever so distressing to so many of you as well. I understand many of you have wanted me to comment on our share price and perhaps do so frequently. But on the advice of counsel, I repeatedly have been told that with me serving at the helm of a publicly traded company, it would be inappropriate to do so. It is also clear that many of you have a wide array of your own theories as to why AMC's share price has declined. Some of those views spot on, explain what has been happening, some are partially accurate, and others make no sense at all. Now, let's talk about this before we go further on. Firstly, we have to realize, and this is something we've always said, Adam Aron makes more when AMC squeezes than he does if he were to quote unquote help out these short sellers. You have to realize he's the largest individual shareholder. You can only imagine how much Adam Aron's able to make when AMC's price is at $1,000 per share, at $10,000, at $50,000 per share. And so we've always said it's in Adam Aron's best interest for the squeeze to happen. And so for me, I never once believed that he's helping out the short sellers. I know some people may think that, and again, it's of course feel free for you to think. But what we have to realize is the opportunity cost for Adam Aron and understanding how he is the largest individual shareholder. And the very fact he hasn't been selling, remember, no matter if it's squeezed or not, it's in his best interest to bring the price of AMC up. Another thing that he obviously talks about here is in terms of the theories that are happening in terms of why AMC price is dropping. So what we can see here is he talks about how some are very spot on, some are partially accurate, and some makes no sense at all. Now, he doesn't specify in terms of which of the ones he talks about that comes into which categories, but what we have seen recently, what we have seen talked about a lot is, of course, firstly, the dark pool, which I still believe that is one of the biggest reasons for why AMC price doesn't go up. And when you just take a look at the dark pool, you can already see the comparison in which, when you compare with others. I think some of the ones he wants to call that are complete nonsense are, of course, some tinfoil hat moments that people do make, wherever they believe it or wherever it's for the fun of it. Of course, we've seen some where it gets too ridiculous, and I think that that's what he's talking about. I think Adam Aron's still very likely hinting at all the manipulation that is still ongoing for AMC. And so you can see that he talks about in terms of what he's going to be focusing on later on for AMC. You can see we have not been sitting by idly doing nothing. To the contrary, we aggressively have been taking action after action after action to please our guests, to improve the appeal of our theaters, to increase our market share, to drive more revenues, and to cut more costs. And so what we can see is now AMCs are far more efficient and far more productive than we were versus only a few years ago. Now, he obviously continues to talk about this in terms of taking a look at what they've done throughout the year, what they've done throughout this year, some of the analysts, talking about previous years, and then talking about the profitability at AMC as well. And so we have to realize is that for Adam Aron, his best interest is to bring AMC up. In terms of, is actually AMC going up? Are we seeing improvements? Yes, we are. And we've already said about this in terms of the box office is only going to get bigger. The efficiency of AMC is only going to get better. And when you cut everything in terms of the operational costs, in terms of the interest payments, and then you factor in what we've just said, we can definitely expect the profitability of AMC to get even higher. So for this year of 2026, we definitely are expecting a lot more. And this is why I think Adam Aron has obviously said this, because I think this year, what we are seeing is that last year, it was the focus on improving the inners of AMC, improving the structure, the operations, etc., etc. This year, I think it looks like Adam Aron wants to focus a lot more in terms of how to grow AMC's market share, to which then reflect in the actual price of AMC, because we obviously deserve a way higher price. And I know it isn't Adam Aron nor AMC's fault to blame, because there isn't any fault of theirs, but the manipulation, suppression by these market makers. But I think that AMC wants to take a move towards this. And you have to realize is that he comments on the stock price, remains the #1 shareholder of AMC and hasn't sold a single share, and remains bullish on the company and the stock. And I think that's the biggest message that retail shareholders could get. And what's more important is the fact that I think another reason why he wants to address this to the retail is potentially he doesn't want institutions to be buying up. Because when you take a look at the overall, the net inflow and outflow, we realize that people are still buying AMC, wherever it's retail or wherever it's institutions. You can see higher and higher we go. So for the institutional ownership, we're looking at institutional ownership of AMC still be at very, very high. And now, at times like this, where you're constantly seeing news articles telling to sell AMC, you're constantly seeing news articles where they say AMC is a bad company, you're seeing institutions buy more. And that should be the clearest message, if anything, in terms of how much we are doing, in terms of how big AMC can get, and the future projection of what's obviously going on. And I think that's why Adam Aron wants to give that message to retail, because he wants the retail, he wants the apes to realize the opportunity there is, and not for the institutions to completely take everything. When you take a look at some of the things that AMC has done recently, AMC offered free screenings requiring a $20 food and beverage package. That strategy generated over $15 million in concession revenue in just 2 days, driven by 753,000 guests. So you can see in terms of the fundamental sides of how well we're doing, and this is what we've said. AMC has been focusing a lot in terms of improving the fundamentals, in terms of improving the business structures, and that itself is very, very important, because that's how we are able to position AMC this year in terms of reflecting the price. And Adam Aron himself obviously talked about this, and they are going to bring more Netflix content to AMC theaters. So for those people who are saying that Netflix is here to take out AMC, they couldn't be more wrong, because Netflix is actually here to provide more content for AMC as they realize the power of AMC. Another thing, Avatar: Fire and Ash is now projected to surpass $2 billion at the global box office, the third time in a row the franchise hits this mark. So if you want another sign of how well the box office is doing, this is obviously another one. And we're only going to be looking at more franchises of Avatar to be coming out. We're only going to be looking at more movies coming out. And the very fact that we are able to see a box office this big should still highlight to you the potential there is for the overall box office for AMC. Another big thing is how Zootopia 2 has actually passed Avengers Endgame to become the highest grossing Hollywood film of all time in China. And the reason why I say this is important is because we talked about how, due to the decrease of regulations, we are looking at a new entire market to be opening up in China, where more and more movies are able to go in there. And what we've just shown you with this, how Zootopia 2 surpassed Avengers, is to show you that there is plenty of money to be made in the Chinese movie industry. And so we already talked about how that is already going to equate to a bigger box office, aka AMC generating revenue. But also, we talked about the film distribution. If AMC were to go into film distribution and they would release films that would be able to be publicized in the Chinese market, this is something that's also going to be huge as well. You can also see this. Something big is happening where we're looking at AMC dark pool. Now, once again, you're just looking at the dark pool usage. We are seeing, in terms of the percentage of dark pool going down. However, the volume is still extremely high. So whilst the percentage is only 62%, and in terms of in comparison to previous before, it's obviously lower, but the volume is at 22 million, whereas previously we may have seen a 72%, but a 17 million volume. So don't just be blinded by the percentage. It is still important, otherwise we won't talk about it. But the very fact we are still seeing a large amount of volume being hidden away, not affecting the market, that is still the biggest thing. Because at times when we do get this amount of volume, it's very likely that they are actually bullish volume to bring AMC up, but they're suppressed and or rooted into the dark pool. Now you're looking at this in terms of the bank's run on the Fed's repo window pauses. Now this is quite surprising considering what's happening, but it's not surprising when you encounter everything that's going on. $0 in liquidity injections Monday morning after TBTF banks tapped the Fed for nearly $100 billion over the last 2 trading days. When you account for everything that's going on in the market right now, this is obviously very surprising. And the very fact we're looking at a pause right now, well, we have to obviously take time before we can come to a conclusion, but it's very likely that we are seeing that illiquidity problem becoming even worse. And if that is the case, we're going to be looking at a lot of banks struggling. Now, the reason why I said we still have to wait for it is because firstly, US regulators hit banks with $7.1 billion fine after failing to stop potential insider trading and manipulative activity. And so the reason why I talk about this right after that is understanding the fact that we are still getting news of how these regulators are, of course, still helping out these funds. And the very fact they are knowing that there's manipulation going on is why I said that they won't put themselves in a position where they completely are out of illiquidity, or rather are out of liquidity, because they can't afford for all of the manipulations made by these banks, by these institutions, to blow up right now. And another case is just looking at the reverse repo, 6.4 billion. So repo at 0, reverse repo at 6.4. And it's important to note in terms of the fact that this is ultimately what's allowing the short sellers to obviously tap in, and we are looking at it go to 0. We are looking at it running dry. And so that's very important to keep a close eye to. Another thing, you can see UBS just like this, where we're looking at silver going up even higher. The reason why this is important is because of the UBS short positions in silver. And if we're seeing them taking a massive hit, you're going to be looking at the AMC swaps being covered and or being transferred if UBS can't hold on to it anymore. And then finally, the margin debt pushing 1.3 trillion through December. So another thing just really highlighting exactly what's going on in the market right now, showing about distress, showing about the margin requirements and how these banks are in need of money. Now, as always, known as a financial advisor, do take us a grain of salt, make sure to do your own due diligence and research, and I'll catch you guys next time.